It isn't the barbell that broke Jeff Cavaliere's image. It's the moment people realized the plates on that bar might not be real at all. A man who built an entire empire on science, integrity, and evidence-based training suddenly looked like he'd been selling something much closer to a magic trick. Jeff Cavaliere didn't start out as just another ripped guy on YouTube screaming motivational cliches. He came into the game with credentials: physical therapist, former head PT, and strength coach for the New York Mets. The calm, clinical presence in a sea of hype and noise. He built Athlean-X as the thinking person's fitness channel. Viewers weren't just told what to do, they were told why. Muscles were highlighted, tendons were named, and concepts like torque, joint stress, and movement patterns became part of the everyday vocabulary of millions of casual lifters. That science guy positioning was his superpower. While other creators chased viral pranks or transformations, Jeff went the opposite way. Simple white background, direct eye contact, clear anatomical diagrams, and training advice that sounded like it came from a physiotherapy seminar instead of a locker room. That contrast made people trust him more. If another influencer said, "Do this, it works, bro," and Jeff said, "Don't do that, here's the research and biomechanics," most viewers didn't even hesitate. They sided with Jeff. From that trust came the real money. Athlean-X wasn't just videos. It was a meticulously built business system. Training programs like AX1, AX2, specialized routines for athletes, women, older lifters, zero equipment plans, supplements, merch. The channel became a permanent advertisement for an entire ecosystem. But because the content felt educational, those ads never felt like ads. A video about perfect chest training seamlessly pointed to the program that would put the advice into action. A breakdown of shoulder injuries ended with, "If you want a step-by-step system that avoids these mistakes." And suddenly, you're on a checkout page. Over time, that model compounded. Each viral video didn't just bring views, it pulled people into a funnel that turned attention into sales. Jeff wasn't selling entertainment. He was selling expertise. The implied promise was simple. You can trust me, not just because I look the part, but because I understand the science behind it better than anyone else. And then a deadlift video changed everything. In one clip, Jeff is seen pulling what's labeled as around 495 to 500 pounds. At first glance, it's impressive. A relatively lean guy, not a powerlifter by trade, seemingly ripping up a weight that most serious lifters spend years chasing. For a while, nobody questioned it. Why would they? This was Jeff, the honest one. But then viewers slowed it down. Someone paused the frames, studied the plates, the bar, the way everything moved. A few things didn't add up. The bar didn't bend the way a bar usually bends under that kind of load. The plates looked slightly off, like those oversized, smooth demo plates, often used for filming. The bar path and Jeff's body language looked suspiciously casual for a maximal deadlift. From there, people started looking at other old clips the same way. More red flags appeared. There were videos showing Jeff performing a 315-pound bench variation from pins with a level of bar speed and control that seemed strangely out of sync with what most lifters experience at that weight. Strict curls with 135 pounds that moved a little too smoothly. Squats, rows, and other heavy lifts where the physics of how the bar behaved seemed off. Once that seed of doubt was planted, every big number lift on his channel became evidence in a case people were now building against him. Small channels were the first to put it together. They zoomed into the plates, compared them to known fake gym props, analyzed how the bar flexed or didn't, and dissected the footage frame by frame. Suddenly, the narrative shifted from "Jeff is insanely strong for his size" to "Wait, he might not be lifting what he says he's lifting." What had been background flexing, the kind of "oh wow, he's strong too" side benefit to his image, now looked like a potential core part of his marketing. Because this is the key point. He didn't just casually lift these weights, he said the numbers, he called them out. 500 pounds, 315, 135. Those numbers are sticky. They create a story in the viewer's mind. This guy is not just a smart coach, he's legitimately elite level strong. And if he's that strong at his age, and body weight using his own methods, then his programs must be absurdly effective, right? That connection between the weight on the bar and the products he sold was never subtle. It was part of the appeal. That's why the accusations hurt so much. This wasn't like using lighter dumbbells in the background of a warm-up demo. This was claiming specific, impressive numbers that could reasonably influence someone's decision to buy. If those plates weren't real, then those numbers weren't real. And if those numbers weren't real, a huge chunk of his authority was built on a lie. The fitness community split fast. On one side were those who felt betrayed. To them, this was non-negotiable. You do not fake numbers while selling strength programs. Period. Many lifters take pride in honest progress. They grind for months to add 10 pounds to a lift. To find out the guy they trusted as the no BS coach might have staged those dramatic weights like a movie prop felt like a slap in the face. They argued that it was no different from photoshopping your before and after pictures, or secretly using enhancement drugs while marketing natural programs. On the other side were the defenders. Some argued that Jeff's main value was his knowledge, not his lifts. They said his form breakdowns, his injury prevention content, his mobility tips, all of that remained useful whether or not the plates were real. They saw the heavy lifts as just visuals, and the controversy as overblown drama. A few even suggested that maybe the odd camera angle or plate design was confusing people, and that he might simply be legitimately strong enough to handle those weights. That defense started to crumble over time. As more videos analyzed more lifts and more inconsistencies piled up, it became harder to explain everything away. People weren't just saying, "This looks kind of fake." They were breaking down bar physics, plate dimensions, and how a lifter at his size and age would realistically move under that load. Slowly, even some of his initial defenders began to admit that something felt off. Not necessarily that Jeff was a total fraud, but that he clearly wasn't being fully transparent. So how did Jeff respond to all of this? Not with a direct, no questions left on the table explanation. He didn't sit down and say, "Here's the deal with those lifts. Here's what I did, here's why, and here's why it was wrong." Instead, what viewers got were more indirect moves. He put out footage showing himself lifting heavy with what appeared to be legitimate plates in more conventional setups, which some fans immediately framed as, "See, he is that strong." But that kind of response dodges the actual accusation. Whether the original viral lifts, especially the most questionable ones, used fake weights while being presented as real. That gap, the gap between what people wanted him to answer and what he actually addressed, became its own kind of confession for many. When someone's entire brand is built on clarity and no BS, avoiding the most important question speaks louder than any formal statement. It leaves viewers to connect their own dots. If he could clear this up easily and honestly, why hasn't he? Other creators continued to drive the story. Some framed it as a morality tale, a reminder that even the most trusted, science-based influencer can slip into spectacle when the pressure to keep growing gets intense. Others zeroed in on the business side. Once your revenue depends on maintaining a superhuman image, the temptation to exaggerate grows, and the line between demonstrating and deceiving gets blurry. And this is where the bigger issue emerges. Jeff's story isn't an isolated scandal. It's a symptom of the influencer era. Fake weights are just one technique in a larger toolkit of illusion. Angles, lighting, filters, editing, selective footage, chemical enhancement, exaggerated claims, all of these can be used to create a version of reality that looks attainable, profitable, and inspiring, but isn't actually honest. And when there's money on the line, programs to sell, sponsorships to keep, views to maintain, the incentive to bend that reality grows. Jeff Cavaliere built a reported multi-million-dollar brand by appearing to be the antidote to all that. That's the irony. He was the real one, the professional, the guy not doing stunts or flexing fake lifestyles, but quietly, methodically teaching you how the body works and how to train it correctly. That's why the fake weight accusations landed like a bomb. They weren't just calling out a lift, they were calling out the foundation of the persona he projected. Does that mean everything he created is worthless? Plenty of his content is technically sound. His explanations of shoulder mechanics, common form mistakes, joint-friendly exercise variations. These have helped a lot of people. You can absolutely learn from his breakdowns and still get value from them. Humans are complicated. Someone can be both a skilled educator and a marketer who makes unethical choices under pressure. But that's also the exact reason this story matters. When you buy from someone like Jeff, you're not just buying information. You're buying into a story that this particular person, with this particular body and strength level, got these results using the methods they're selling you. Once any part of that story is revealed to be staged, everything else becomes fair to question. If there's one practical takeaway for viewers, it's this. Never let a single creator, no matter how smart, ripped, or credentialed, become your unquestioned authority. Test advice in your own training. Compare what different coaches say. Pay attention to whether someone is honest about their limitations, their background, and what they can actually do. Ask yourself, if the cameras were off and no one was buying anything, would this person still be acting the same way? And when you see outrageous lifts, insane physiques, and too good to be true claims, pause. Ask whether the numbers make sense for that person's size, age, and training history. Consider how much they stand to gain from you believing those claims. Remember that in an economy built on attention, shock value often beats honesty in the short term. But that doesn't mean you have to be the one paying for the illusion. Jeff Cavaliere's rise and fallout is ultimately a story about trust. He turned anatomical diagrams and clinical explanations into a powerful brand that made him rich and influential. Then, when the evidence started to point toward stage strength, he didn't fully cash in the trust he had built by being radically transparent. He hedged, sidestepped, and left crucial questions unanswered. That choice may not have destroyed Athlean-X, but it permanently changed how many people see it. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a comment with who you want to see covered next. The more people ask hard questions, the harder it becomes for anyone to hide behind fake plates, fake stats, or fake honesty.